great. Great. We'll be kickstarting the session as we said in our email that we'll be starting at 4 o'clock prompt, 4 p.m. West African time prompt. So while others join us, we'll be kickstarting the session. So for earlier shared with us the agenda for this training. This is a 2 days summit today as well as tomorrow, same time. And without further ado, I would like to invite a friend and a colleague who will be taking the session today. Or while he takes today's session, I'll be handling tomorrow session. So over to you, Muhsin.
Okay, good evening, good day, everybody. I think most of us will be in the evening now. I heard Lukunle is in the UK. Muzammil and Anas, they are in Pakistan. I mentioned it's 8 p.m. already. So this
Yeah.
4 p.m. Nigerian time. So which means most of us, we are in the evening already. So good evening, everybody, and I welcome us to this meetup. I'll be sharing my screen now. We would just confirm to me as soon as the screen is up. Can we see the screen now?
Yeah, Muhsin is visible.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks a lot for the feedback. Okay, so we're welcome to the meetup, and this is brought to us by Microsoft Eastern Power Platform Community. This is one of the communities that we have in Nigeria that drives Microsoft's product and adoption. This is coming our way all at no cost, thanks to the organizers, Samson, and those other persons who are working at the background to ensure that we impact the community as much as we can. So this is something some other people have probably done this for us. That's why we are taking it as our primary responsibility as well to try as much as possible to see how we can also transfer some of what we know and make it beneficial to the other persons. And for this meetup, we'll be focusing on business intelligence with Power Pivot and DAX. How can we build business intelligence solution in Microsoft Excel? This is what this is saying simply. We understand that there are a couple of business intelligence tools out there. There are some peculiarities, there are some similarities, but regardless, for this particular meetup, we'll be focusing on Excel. As Excel is a widely adopted tool, almost everywhere people use Excel for various reasons, various purposes. But if we want to drive business intelligence using Excel, what are the key things or what are the key tools that are available within Microsoft Excel to avail us this opportunity? So this will be the center of conversation for this particular session today and tomorrow. We will be running a part of this session today, 2 hours. So we've started now. In the next less than 2 hours, we are done. And the concluding part will be tomorrow, God willing. And the host for this meetup is Samson Obasi. Some of us, we might probably we've met him sometimes before, or we know him already. So he's a data and content analyst, works at Deep Brown Consulting, is Microsoft certified. And I hope Samson hopefully will drop some of his handles on the chat so that we can connect beyond here. So the LinkedIn handle is here as well as that of the Twitter. And I'm aware Samson is the lead for the Eastern Power Platform Community, Nigeria. They're doing a lot of great works there. So well done, Samson. You could just drop a few of your handles on the chat so that people can connect. And this is my humble self. My name is Muhsin Hameed. I'm a business intelligence analyst and a trainer. Work with Brown Consulting. Microsoft certified. Got a couple of certification when it comes to the Microsoft ecosystem. These are my handles as well, so we can connect on LinkedIn. Just Muhsin Hameed, I'll get to see on LinkedIn, and This is my Twitter, and I have a YouTube channel, ID_analyst. We can check that out as well. We have some learnings that we've had sometime past around the Microsoft Power Platform. So if the Power Platform is one of what interests you, you can check out that on YouTube. Right into it. So what are we looking at today? I like to set some bases. I like to set some foundations before we go into the technical bit. So, because one of what I've realized in recent time is that many people, we tend to, yes, well, I want to learn business intelligence. What we just do is we go into the tool itself and learn the tool. Want to learn business intelligence, people tell us go and learn Power BI, go and learn Tableau, go and learn Google Data Studio, go and learn Looker, go and learn Click. We just go into the tool and we learn, but there are some foundations. There are some fundamentals we need to be aware of when it comes to business intelligence. We should be in the know of why are we actually doing business intelligence? What's the reason? Why would company want to invest in business intelligence? What is the goal of business intelligence? What is the value companies would tend to get from investing or driving business intelligence, and how can we then go on to build a business intelligence solution? So these are some of the things we'll be looking at. We want to set foundation so that for whatever tool we are using eventually, we have some foundations that are transferable. We have some foundations that cut across whatever tool. We need to understand why we're doing this. Just the same way when we were in school a couple of times, some of us probably the courses we studied wasn't really what we wanted to study in school. And in a way, it impacted our performance because for someone who wants to study medicine, wants to become a medical doctor or a surgeon, and eventually he gets into school, into the high school, and is giving, say, maybe a course that has to do with animal science or agriculture or something. So the person will just accept that probably because he doesn't want to lose the admission for that year and will just want to go on. And for that reason, he may not really be willing to push through as he would have wanted to if he was given the course that he wanted to study actually. So, and the reason why he wanted to study the course he wanted to, it was clear to him, he had those reasons well spelled out. So, and that is not available for the course that he is studying at the moment, which is one of the reasons why he may not actually perform as expected. So we need to understand some of the whys around business intelligence before we then go out to talking about how to build a solution, the BI solution with Excel pivot tables. Pivot table is one exceptional tool in Microsoft Excel that can do a lot of magic. There are so many things that we can do with pivot table. It has its limitations to which we'll talk a bit about that, but essentially pivot tables are they're very exceptional, and it's the major tool in Microsoft Excel that can drive business intelligence. And as such, some of the limitations of Microsoft of pivot tables have been covered by the Power Pivot, which is what is typically referred to as the Excel data model. So we'll talk about that as well. So the conversation will be split into 3 sections. The first section is where we'll be talking about business intelligence generally, just setting some foundations there, after which we now go into the technical bits. So we go into Microsoft Excel to say some of what we can do when it comes to we building reports, building BI solutions with pivot tables. And at the tail end, we'll talk about Power Pivot, which is, yes, powerful as the name implies. And we'll have some time to take questions. So as I go on with this conversation, if you have questions, we can begin to drop them on the chat. I will not attend to them immediately, but of course, they are already on the chat. And when it's time to take questions, we would attend to that. And I think that might be the best way to go about it if peradventure we are able to say the chat. Can we quickly confirm if we can say the chat? We can just type something on the chat if we can see. I think myself, I can't see the chat. I can't see the icon here. I don't know for other people.
I think chat is available, but the chat is disabled right now.
Okay,
I think the meeting, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Muhsin, it isn't available for guests. It is only available to team members.
Okay. So how do we manage this? Okay, what we can do is please, as we go on, let's note down our questions. Let's pen it down. and when it's time, we would attend to those questions, so that we don't have to. This definitely wouldn't cause so much ache. So let's get back to this. So the first part of the course, I want to talk about introduction to business intelligence. Why business intelligence? So let me just have a little bit of background as to the audience, those of us that we are on the call at this moment. Do we have people that are doing business intelligence, probably business intelligence analyst, BI developer, or we are aspiring to be one? Just want to understand the spread. If I would start with Olukunle. Only would you want to? What do you do at the moment? Is it related to BI?
Hi.
Hi, Kunle.
Yeah. I'm presently an accountant, and
Okay.
I don't do anything related to Power BI, but I work with Excel.
Okay. Of
I
course,
work with
as an
Excel.
accountant,
Yeah.
your primary tool. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Kunle.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Not sure Muzamil is here. Daniel.
Yeah. Yes, I'm already done.
Okay. So Muzamil, are you doing anything related to business intelligence at the moment?
Basically, right now I am just doing the project by myself, my own. I'm not working currently for purely for as a data analyst for any company. So right now I just work as a QA analyst, SQA software quality analyst right now. So I
Okay.
just basically work on that field and just to learning a lot of skills and the Power BI. I just do a freelancing as a data analyst.
Okay. That's great. So thanks a lot, Muzamil. Daniel.
Yeah, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. For me, I also use Excel. There's nothing much to do with the BI, and I'm just excited to learn more.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you, Daniel. I can see Rachel is on the call. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, good evening, all.
Evening.
Thank you for organizing this program. I actually am an educationist.
Okay.
I think this is the first time I'm hearing about business intelligence. But I think I make use of Excel because that's what I use to record my children, my students' results. So I'm more of data entry and recording of results. So I think I don't have an idea of it.
Okay, that's great. I'm sure by the end of this training, you would have expanded your knowledge of Excel. So you're in safe hands.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello, Ifeoma. Okay, not sure if Ifeoma is here. Anas?
Yeah, thank you, Muhsin. So I've recently started my career as a business analyst, and why I'm here to learn more about business intelligence and to involve myself and get into the thick of things and to really know the whys and hows behind business intelligence and what it is used for. And also, I would love to learn Excel and to learn its secrets and the magic that it has to offer to land land a role as an analyst, hopefully.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody, for our responses. And yes, I really needed that so that I would be able to just have an idea of what the audience is like and what our expectation is. So I can carry everyone along. So that's just the essence of that. So let's go back straight in. So when we talk about business intelligence, essentially we have businesses around, regardless of the size of the business. For instance, a trader, a petty trader, for instance, maybe the person sells stationaries, and the person has a shop somewhere around a bus stop or somewhere around a school. That will be clearer. The person sells stationaries and has a shop around the school. What happens is that what we would observe is that many times if we go to such shops to buy something in the evening, the likelihood that would meet the seller would be very low. The seller may not be around in the evening, or the seller may just probably she only opens early in the morning, say it like 12 or 2 o'clock. And after then, she goes off maybe to attend to something else, or even sometimes just go home to sleep. In the same vein, we could have some other traders. I'm speaking from the Nigerian space now. Some traders are such that, excuse me, they just come out in the evening. They come out in the evening, they display their wares, their goods, and they sell up to late in the night, and they go back. In the morning, you would not see them. Why do people do this way? Why do we experience this with traders and with professionals? It's because of the fact that at the primary level, the stationary store owner, he or she might have observed that our sales, the volume of sales or the drive for our sales usually come in the morning. Why? Because our own target audience will be out in the morning till the afternoon. So anytime in the evening, she most likely will not make sales. And that's why we would not see her out there. And the other categories of people that we talked about, they are such that they have the businesses and they have observed that their target buyers are actually those that would come out, say, in the evening, or maybe because the nature of the product they are selling would actually sell more in the evening and not during the day. This is to drive thoughts around business intelligence. So what business intelligence does for us practically is that it allows us to think through our business, observe some patterns and trends in the business, and then go on to now assist us to make some decisions based on those patterns and the trends that we have observed. The stationary person that we mentioned, the pattern she observed was that it is predominantly students that buy from her. So if students are our predominant buyers, then she needed not to come out in the evening because the students would have gone in, they have closed from school, they have returned home. So nobody is buying stationaries at those times. And this other category of people, they have also observed that their predominant buyers are people that would be out in the evening, or their products are products that sell better in the evening than during the day. So why should I come out? Why should I open my store from morning till evening when I know that sales would actually come later in the evening? So that is an intelligence about their business. But a number of things would allude to they being able to make this decision. And that is the essence of business intelligence. Subconsciously, people do this every time. Subconsciously, we use data to drive a lot of things about our lives subconsciously, because sometimes you want to go out, you're thinking you have options of 2 routes to your destination. So you're thinking you should go route A, but your mind is telling you that usually on route A there is traffic. Route A is a traffic troubled road. And then you're thinking, okay, in that wise, let me go through route B. What has assisted you in making that decision is because your mind has already registered that for most of the times that you went via route A, it happened that you got stuck in traffic. And so that data has been captured, put back into your mind, and when next you're trying to follow that route, that thing just prints out and tells you that, hey guy, you shouldn't follow this route because remember the last 2 times you followed there was traffic. So the data has been captured in your mind, and then it's now allowing you to now make some decisions based on it. So that's done subconsciously. So the same thing is what happens in business. Businesses capture data, whether directly or indirectly. The stationery store owner might not have been capturing her own data physically, real time. She may not be doing that, but she had captured that data over time in her mind, up until the fact that she now decided, up until the point that she decided that what would be best for her at her business is to come out very early in the morning and close at midday. That is what is best for our business. The same thing happens to everybody. So when we now bring this back to the business, for whatever organization we are in, for whatever companies we work with, or whatever businesses we run, data is captured. This data that is captured, we are meant to use it for certain purposes. We are meant to utilize that data to assist us do some things, to assist us make some decisions, to assist us understand some things around our business and decide on a number of other things. And that is the whole essence of business intelligence. So in business intelligence, part of what we're doing is that we want to try to see through the key areas of our business. We have observed that there is the lack of visibility in some areas of our business. We do not really know what is happening or what is driving our sales. We are not really sure which of our products actually sell the most. We are not really sure if some of our sales team, they're actually outperforming the others. We are not really sure if we have a few persons on our team who are the major playmakers, whereas we have a few others that are not really working. So there are key areas of our business that lack visibility. So we want to make them visible. We want to understand what is happening in there. The second reason why we want to do business intelligence is we want to observe our historical patterns. What has happened in our business in the last 5 years? How has our business thrived? How has our business been performing in the last 5 years? We want to observe this. We want to use that to understand our business and then probably now begin to now look into the future to see what could happen. And again, want to be able to access data quickly. That is one of the key things of business intelligence. Want it that want a particular metric or a particular KPI that we are measuring, want to be able to see whatever data is around it in real time. That is one of the key areas of business intelligence. And again, we want to be able to predict. By business intelligence, we have been able to see through the patterns and the trends. So now going forward, we want to be able to predict based on the patterns and the trends that we saw. Can we now use that to predict the future to say that, okay, maybe we sell most in December. If we sell most in December, then December should be where prior to December, we need to stock so much because we know that our sales volume is very high in December. So we want to be able to make such predictions that, okay, next December, we would sell this volume of sales, or next December, we should be able to realize this amount of revenue. So those are some of the predictions we want to be able to make using business intelligence. And lastly, for now, is we want to be able to integrate multiple applications or data sources. Our data might be sitting in different data sources. It might be sitting in Excel, as some organizations do have. It might be sitting in some relational databases, maybe SQL, maybe SQL, maybe Oracle, maybe MongoDB, depending on the kind of database, maybe SQL or NoSQL databases in our organizations. We want to be able to integrate all of these, even maybe to our customer relationship management systems or our enterprise resource planning systems, so that in real time we are pulling data from all of these sources and getting those data being fed into a particular analytic tool and seeing what the result is real time. So these are some of the reasons why we are building business intelligence tool, or we are running business intelligence. And essentially, if we look at the summary of all of this, it all revolves around our business. Understanding the business, understanding where we are, and thinking through or thinking around where we want to get to. But just to summarize this further, so that we understand essentially what are the key things that we are looking at here, we quickly will talk about the goal of BI. The goal of BI basically three. We can summarize it to be three. And the first is that we want to understand what is working. There are a number of techniques we might have deployed in our business. There are a number of strategies, a number of operational principles and techniques in our business. We want to understand from all of this, what is actually working? What is it that is working? We want to understand that. So that if we all know what is working, of course, maybe that would allow us to now think consistently around how can we sustain this? When we know what is working, we want to also know what is not working. Some things are not working in the business, but because we are not analyzing our businesses, it's such that we are still pumping money into that. We are foiling it, but it's actually not working. So we want to understand what is not working as well. And lastly is we want to know what we should focus on. So if we know what is working and we know what is not working, that would guide us towards what we should actually focus on. So that is all about business intelligence. That is the goal of business intelligence. I want to understand what is working as of today, what are the implementations that have worked, that we have seen the result, and what are those things that have impacted our business negatively. We've pushed so much funds into that, but they are not working. They are not doing anything. They are not bringing value into the business. So what are those things that are not working? And what are the things that we need to focus on? So these are the things that we are looking at in BI. So for whatever thing we are doing in BI, have this at the back of your mind. Someone has asked you to prepare a report. Remember that in that report, they are not just interested in seeing what the revenue figure is. They are running a school, for instance. They are not just interested in seeing how much is the tuition fee, or how much did we realize from tuition fees, or how much did we realize from sales of books and stationaries. They are not just interested in all of those, but some of what you may be interested in is what is the pattern in the payment of tuition fees. When we ask students to go back home, does it in any way affect how they pay? When we ask students, when we give them letters when they vacate, that they must pay before resumption, and we send emails to remind the parents, or we send SMS to remind the parents before resumption, does that in any way impact payment? Do they get reminded? Would they be reminded to pay? So some of these are things that they want to know. Okay, when we talk about motivations, when we give our staff some probably bonuses and stuff, does that impact the discharge of their responsibilities? These are some of the things that we need to know. So we're measuring that against performance, we're measuring it against work output and stuff. So for whatever analysis you want to run, have this at the back of your mind, that you're trying to understand, help the business understand what is working. You want to help them understand what is not working, and you want to help them be able to substantiate what they should focus on. And now, quickly, on the last part of this introduction, we want to talk about the real value of BI, because many organizations today, especially very big organizations, they invest heavily in business intelligence. And a number of times you work in organizations, and those organizations, they are contracting some consulting firms to build reporting and analytic solutions for them. Depending on the robustness of these systems, some systems run into millions of naira, hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending. So organizations are investing heavily in business intelligence. Those that are not contracting this out, they want to get a very versatile business intelligence analyst, or a business analyst, or a BI developer that would assist them drive business intelligence. The person definitely would be getting so much pay to do this in the organization. So organizations generally, they invest heavily in this. So what then is the value for the organization in whatever BI solutions we are building? We need to bear this in mind. Many people would argue that it is in the report. That okay, the report will show them what the business, the status of the business. The report will make them understand the business, will them see the matrices and stuff. But I would say that the actual value in the whatever BI solution is not in the report. It's never in the report, because the report can actually be built by anybody, can be built anytime. So far, they have the expertise to do that. But the real value of BI is in the refresh. whatever BI tool you are building, if the BI tool would not allow you real-time analysis, real-time insight into what is happening, then it is not a business intelligence tool. So what we are saying is that the organization or the stakeholders, they want to see us at today, what is our revenue figure? The BI solution should be able to tell them at the click of a button that this is our revenue figure as at today. If they want to go back, say 1 year back, the BI solution should be able to give them that in real time. And that is the whole essence of BI solutions, is in the refresh. It allows organizations to know momentarily, instantaneously sometimes, what it is, what the status is, what are the things around all of this. So these are some of the foundations I just want to lay as regards business intelligence. I know by now some things, we've set some foundations around for our thoughts around business intelligence. So when we begin to work technically in whatever tool now, so these foundations that we have mentioned is applicable to any tool. These are the concepts that we need to be aware of. These are the ideas that we need to be aware of, regardless of the tool. So when we begin to do some technical bits, we'll have things that would guide our thought process, our line of thought as to what should we look at in this report and what should justify that it's a business intelligence tool as against some supposed business intelligence tool. So that's the end of chapter 1. So now we want to look at building a BI solution with Excel. Many people today will use Microsoft Excel, regardless of the organization, regardless of the role. Excel has become a sort of an household tool. Even people that are not in corporate environment, they use Microsoft Excel. But people use Excel for different reasons. So some people use Excel as a data entry tool. Some use it as a database, although it's not practically meant to do that. Some use it as a reporting and analytic tool, and a lot of other things like that. So, but for this particular class, we want to see how we can build BI solution with Excel. And essentially, we are thinking around how can we build a business intelligence report in Microsoft Excel? What are some of the things that we should bear in mind? What are the things that would guide our thoughts around the business intelligence tool that we want to build, and how we want to build it, the reasons why we are building it, and eventually how we can go on to present that, driving some insight with the stakeholders or whoever has requested for the BI solution. So for whatever BI solution we want to build, there are 3 phases to it. We have the data ingestion phase. That's where we are sucking in data. So our data sits where? Where is our data sitting? Is it sitting in Excel? Is our data sitting in a CSV file, a text file? Is it a PDF file? Is it in on a database? Where is our data sitting? Our data has to be somewhere. We want to suck it in. That is the first phase, data ingestion. The second phase is typically called data modeling, but it's not always the situation that you would have to model your data. There are reasons why you would want to model your data, which we may not be able to look deeply into it. But one of the primary reasons why you would want to do what is called data modeling is because of the fact that you have numerous tables that you want to build a single report on top of. You have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tables or more than that. There is a single report you want to plug to all of this data source. So all of these data sources would feed into a single report. Then you do what is called data modeling. We'll see a bit of that today as well. And the last phase of it is data visualization. You have ingested your data, you have sucked in data from where it lives. Then you have modeled your data if that is needed. And lastly is you are now visualizing your data, which is the last part of it, and which is what would lead to you now presenting your findings and your insight to the stakeholders. So today we would focus on the first 2 parts. We'll focus on the ingestion and the modeling, and a bit of the modeling and bit of the modeling will be done tomorrow. And of course, the last part, which is the visualization. Visualization is what people see. Many people are particular about visualization. They want to see those fancy things. But a lot of work would have gone in the background about ingestion and modeling before you can arrive at that visualization. And if those are not properly done, there will be issues with your data visualization. So for BI solutions in Excel, when you want to build this with pivot tables, so now, if you want to build BI solutions in Excel, there are a lot of ways. You want to build reports in Excel, you want to analyze your data in Excel, there are a lot of ways to use. You can combine formulas and functions to do that. You can use your pivot tables, you can use your cube formulas, you can use array formulas and stuff. But we want to focus on pivot tables. And the reason why we are focusing on pivot table is that pivot table is exceptionally good as a summarization tool. It allows you to summarize your data very quickly and seamlessly. By click of button, by just dragging and dropping, you would be able to summarize your data quickly. Unlike if you want to write some function, there are certain things you want to achieve in Excel. If you're not good with functions, combining function, nesting functions, you would not be able to achieve those. But pivot tables just allows you to be able to achieve those without writing functions technically. But when you want to do some advanced stuff, you will still need to write some functions, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, not today. So that's why we're having this conversation around pivot tables primarily. And then if you now want to build a solution with pivot tables, there are 3 data sources that you can use for it. You have your Excel range or table. You can suck in data from data sources, and you can work with what is called the Excel data model. So these 3 will be the things that we'll be looking at in the next 1 hour, let's say 1 hour, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so that we can have some 10 or 15 minutes for questions. So I'm going to switch now to my Excel. If you want to follow through this, you can as well open the data set that was shared with us by Samson. So I'm just a sec. Okay, so let me bring up my Excel now. Just a moment. I'm putting this on my screen. So this is the file that Samson shared with us. It's the data set, and not so large a data set. If I just go down, we have 30,800 rows in this data set, and we have just about 8 columns here. So this is a typical data set that we have for some businesses. So we have a business, they have captured their data for quite a while, and now they have employed us as the data analyst to assist them to analyze this data. Build a BI solution, assist us to be able to make some decisions from this data set that we have gathered over time. The first thing is this. You want to build a report using pivot tables. First thing, you need to go to the Insert tab. You need to go to the Insert tab and you see pivot tables here. But before you go on to insert pivot table on whatever data source or data set that you have, ensure that you have your data structured. Your data has to be structured for reporting. And we have some rules for that, which I would not want to go into that, because I think some probably months back or so, we had some conversation around how to structure your data for reporting. Hopefully, Samson will be able to share the link to some of those recordings so that we can focus on the subject of this course for today. So, assuming our data is structured, which is actually the case now, our data is structured for now, so we can go on to now insert a pivot table on top of our data. So if you want to insert a pivot table on top of your data, you need to just stay anywhere within your data set. This will work if your data set is structured. You need to stay anywhere, just anywhere within your data set, and you go to the Insert tab, you say Pivot Table, just at the leftmost part. You see Pivot Tables, and you click on it. Once you click on Pivot Tables, you'll see a bound around your data, can see sort of a moving broken line around your data. That is telling you that this is the data that I can see. Pivot table is telling you this is what I can see on your data set. And this dialog box will tell you a number of things. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I have my Zoom activated. Okay, great. So this dialog box is telling us some things. We'll talk about a few of those now. First thing is asking us to select a table of orange. Because our data is structured, it was able to capture where our data is sitting. So our data is from A1, cell A1 to cell H30,800, which is correct. And now the second thing is now asking us, where do you want to insert this pivot table? Do you want to put it on a new worksheet? Which means if we go by this option, a new worksheet will be added to our workbook and it will insert the pivot table there, referencing the data set that we have here. And if we say we want to use an existing worksheet, it's asking us now to point to the location of that existing worksheet. Where on this worksheet we want to place it. So if you select somewhere here, you see now that if we had our pivot table, it will be sitting there. But that's not what I want to do. I want to do it on a new worksheet. And then I'll click on OK. So once I click on OK, we now have a new worksheet has been added, sheet 1. We didn't have this before. We have the sheet 1 now. And this is our pivot table framework. So we have this pivot table framework here. And so whatever we are doing on our pivot table would fall on this framework. It can be extended, but primarily it will begin from here. At the right side of the screen, we have what is called the pivot table fields. What happens technically when we insert a pivot table is that pivot tables just go on to pick whatever our column headers are, because it has identified that whatever you have on your first row is your column header. So it has picked that, and that's what it added under your pivot table field. So you can see we have store, we have trade date, we have fiscal period, we have model, line of business, and stuff. We have all of these, 8 of them, and they are the things that we have on our column header: store, trade date, and stuff. The other thing that we have here is we have some buckets here. Let's pay attention to this. Once we understand these buckets, we have understood, I would say, probably like 60% of what we want to do in pivot tables. We have 4 buckets here. We have the filters, we have the columns, we have the rows, and we have the values. When we talk about data generally, we have 2 categories of data. We have the qualitative data and we have the quantitative data. Quantitative, quantity, and qualitative, which is also called categorical. So your quantitative data, they are your numeric data fields. The fields within your data set that you can aggregate. You can either perform a sum, or you can perform an average, or you can perform a max, a mean. You can do calculations on them. Those are your quantitative data. And your qualitative or categorical data, they are your data sets they are your fields, your columns that you cannot perform calculations on. You can just use those to understand your quantities. I'll come again. If I come to this data set here, these are raw data. Here we have store, and we have revenue and units sold. For our revenue, I can do something like equals to the sum, and then I come and select my revenue, and it gives me the sum. This is the sum of my revenue. Now, we have this 73 billion. That is possible because this is a numeric field. If I try to do the same thing, sum of the category, let's see what happens. It gives me 0 because Excel is expecting that when you use the sum function, you want to work on a numeric field. But now I'm pointing to a field that does not have numbers, so you cannot see anything here. Technically, you can't see anything. And that's why it returned a 0 for me. That there is nothing here to summarize, to be summed up. So when we have fields that we can sum up, like our revenue and our units sold, then we have a numeric field, and those are our quantities. And every other fields or columns that we cannot perform calculations on, they are our categories or the qualitative data type. If that is clear, whatever we have understood to be our quantities, and by quantities, I mean those fields that we can perform calculations on, they are the candidates for your values fields. So you have identified your revenue to be a quantity, you can drag it and drop it on values. You have identified your unit sold to be a quantity, you can put it on your values. Any other thing that you cannot perform calculations on, they can come on your rows, your columns, or your filters. How then do we decide what should come on the rows or what should come on the columns? The decision of what should come on your rows or columns is subject to the orientation of your report. If you want your report to go top to bottom like this, then you need to drop that field, that category on the rows. And if you want your report to go left to right, you need to drop that field on the columns. And your filters is just filters. So anything you put on your filters, they are the things that will appear somewhere at the top of your pivot tables, and you can use that to slice and dice into your report. So let's go right in. For this, I want to see let me see, we have our store. Okay, I'm hoping that's not too much. Okay, let's use a model, for instance. So I'll pick model, I'll drop it on the rows. See, it has returned our unique models. These are the unique models we have on our data set. And then, and immediately I clicked out, you notice that we lost the pivot table field because now we are back inside of Excel. But once we get back here, we are now back inside pivot table. And just to point out, what we have, some tools are available that works with Excel. They are not primarily Excel, so pivot table is one of those. Technically, anything we see under the Insert tab is a tool that works with Excel. It's not really Excel itself. And so that's why whenever we are on such tools as we are on pivot table, we'll see that on the tabs, we have extra tabs here. So now we have dropped our model on the rows. So let's pick our unit sold and drop it on the values. So now we have a summary of our model by the unit sold. So for this model, this is the number of units that we sold. If I'm just going to format this quickly and then just remove the decimals. So for this model, this is what we sold, and like that. We have built a report already. So like I said, we dropped these models on the rows because we want our report to go top to bottom. If you had wanted it to go across the columns, we'll just pick this and drop it on this. And you see the orientation has changed. That's gone just across the column. This may not be the best for now, so I'll return it to the rows. So one thing I want us to now quickly notice here is this. We mentioned that the real value of your business intelligence solution is in the refresh. You must be able to refresh it to get real-time data. I will do something quickly now. I'll go to my data set. I'll go just below. And then for this particular model, I just want to add an extra record here. I'll duplicate this. I just brought this down. So let me just duplicate all of this. And then for the unit sold, let me make this a ridiculously high value so that we can quickly see the impact on the report. So this is 100,000 for 5001C. If I come to my pivot table, this is where is 5001C? This is 5001C here. At the moment, it's at 114,000. That's the unit sold. But now I added a new row which has 100,000. So we are expecting that this updates to one that should be 214,000. That is what we expect here. So if you want to refresh your pivot tables, there are a number of options. So you can do a right click, stay anywhere within your pivot table, do a right click, and you say refresh. So I'll click on refresh, but sadly, nothing happened. Let me refresh again. It's not refreshing. The values remain the same. Why is this happening? I'll tell us in a moment. The first thing we need to be aware of is when we are working with pivot tables, our pivot table is not really live streaming. It's not really live streaming our data. So there should be something that would inform it that, okay, there is a change. And that was the reason why we needed to come and refresh this manually. So when we insert a pivot table, it pulls in the data into the pivot cache, and it's from there that it's now feeding. So we need to now tell it that there is a new data set that you need to feed into your pivot, and it will now get to reproduce that, give us the aggregate. But the problem at this time is that our data set is not formatted as, let me show something first. If I come here now and I come to pivot table analyze, is it here? Yes, if I come to pivot table analyze and I come to change data source, if I say change data source, you see that what I have here, sorry, you see that what I have here is still 30,800 rows. Why? Because the extra row I added, pivot table has not seen that extra row. So which is a problem. Why should we have to manually come here and turn this to 1? It shouldn't be like that. Then what can we do to salvage this situation? This is a major problem that many business owners, they encounter. So what we need to do is, this particular data set that we have here, the only problem why pivot table is not able to see this extra row that we added was because this was not formatted as a table. So what we need to do is to format this data set as a table. Once we format it as a table, whatever extra row comes into that table, pivot table will be able to see is that our table has expanded, and then it just goes on to refresh and it picks whatever new data set. So let's format this as a table, but for the moment, I'm gonna remove this extra row. I'll add it back later. So I've removed that, so our data set is back to 30,800. So here, to format as a table, you have a number of options, but I'll use the shortcut, Control L, and I will say, okay. So this is now a table, and that's why we can see this contextual tab, table design. And one of the best practices is once you have a table on your Excel, please give your table a name. It allows you to reference it from anywhere. So under the table design, I have table 1 here. So I'll come here, I'll give this, maybe I'll call this sales data. Just call this sales data, and then I'll come back to this. I'll remove this so that I just want us to see what this would be like. So I have this. I want to insert a pivot table on this again. I'll come to insert pivot tables, and now you can see that for the table range, it has seen it that this is sales data. That is what I want to plug my pivot table on top of. Then I'll do OK. So it's the same thing. We have this is our pivot table, and let's drop our model again on the rows, and units sold on the values. We have our model on the rows, units sold on the values, just what we had earlier. So let me just format this. So I have this, and then let me just remove the decimals. This is what we have. So let's go back to our data, and then I'm gonna add that extra row. I've added that extra row. You can see we have 30,801 now. That's what we have now. So I'm just going to change the unit sold to one ridiculously high unit. This should be 100,000 or something of such, 100,000. So now we now go back to our pivot tables. I'll come here, I'll do a right click. Let's keep an eye on this. This is the model. If you come to our data, this is our model. This is what we added, 5001C. I'll come here. This is what we're looking at. So if I right click and I do refresh, you can see now we have 214,000 and our values have gone up. Why did that happen? If I come to the pivot table analyze and I do change data source, I come here to change data source, it's still seeing sales data, which is our entire table. So that is one of the benefits of using tables to feed into your pivot table. So for the moment, I'm just going to come back here and then I'll remove this extra row. I'll come back to my pivot table. I'll do a right click. I'll refresh. This is back. So great. So now, this is one of the data sources that we can use to feed our pivot table. We are feeding from Excel range. That's when our data was not formatted as a table, or you're feeding from a table, which I would advise, regardless of the size of your data set, ensure, try as much as possible to feed from a table. The other way to build pivot tables is you are building your pivot table from external data. Maybe your data is sitting on a SQL server, your data is sitting on Oracle, your data is sitting on maybe Salesforce or somewhere, or Access database. So you should be able to connect to it from your Excel and build a pivot table on top of that. But if you want to do that, that is one of the reasons why you would need the tool called Power Pivot. So Power Pivot is an exceptional tool that allows us to do a lot of things in Excel, extend the possibilities within Excel. And practically one of what Power Pivot will do for us is, one, it allows you to connect to multiple tables. At the same time, build a report on top of that. And also it allows us to connect to create a relationship between those tables, or connect to even external tables, but not technically bringing those data sets into Excel. Or maybe when you want to work with a data set, the data sets seem more than what Excel can take. Excel capability is just a little above 1 million rows. So 1,048,576 rows, that's what Excel can take. So once you have a data set that is more than this, it's most likely that that will not work in Microsoft Excel. So if you have such data, you still want to analyze it within Excel, then your best bet is to come through your Power Query, or you come through your Power Pivot. So let's see how that is now. If you are, for your Excel, if for some reasons you can see on the tabs, you don't have this Power Pivot tab, you may not have it by default. What you can do is you can right click on any of these tabs, you do a right click, you guys the ribbon, and this opens up this window for you. And here where you have the main tabs, if you just scroll down, you see pivot table somewhere here, and you can just check. So that is if you are using Excel from 2016, 2019, or the Office 365, you should have this. But if you're using lower versions of Excel, maybe 2013, 2010, you will need to download pivot table as an add-on, then bring it in from the back end of Microsoft Excel. So that's how this goes. So for me, I have Power Pivot here already. I have the tab here. So what I just need to launch my Power Pivot is to come to this button here, Manage. You see that for Manage, I have Data Model. So that is why your Power Pivot is set to be your Excel data model. That is Power Pivot. And you have the calculations that you can do. These are some of the things that will be talked about in the next class. You can add stuff. We'll talk about the relationship piece of things shortly. So I'll click on Manage, and this will launch another window entirely on top of my Microsoft Excel. This has launched another window, but because I launched it from a file, I have this opened with all of these worksheets. So that is why on my Power Pivot window, I have all of those already poured into here. So I have this, I have this, I have this. So these are the tables that I have. Sometimes you may not see all your tables, but we'll come to that shortly. So now let's assume my data set is sitting in SQL Server. Maybe what I should do is, let me close this for now. Let me open a blank Excel, and then I'm going to go to Power Pivot, launch it from a blank Excel. So this is what I have. So it's blank because there is nothing on the backyard. So assuming you want to build a report that will be feeding from your SQL Server, how do we go about that? So here on the Home tab, I have from database, get external data. This is the group. You can get data from database, from data sources, and from other sources, and you can manage your existing connections. So if I select from database here, I have three options. If I select from database, I have three options. I can bring it from SQL Server, from Access, or from Analysis Services. So this is Analysis Services Tabular. That is one of the modules that we have on the SQL Server database or the SQL Server management products. So I can bring in from any of these three. If I come to my data service, I would have from data feed. I've not used this so much really. And then I have other data sources. So for other data sources, you have every data source that you can connect to. Your data is sitting in Azure, you have it on the analytics platform, you access Oracle. And if you scroll down, you will see the flat files. You can import again from Excel or from text file. So I'm gonna close this. And I'll come here to from database, from SQL Server. So I want to bring in this from SQL Server database. So I have a SQL Server Management Studio installed on my system, and that is the Management Studio that I would connect to now to pull data into this Excel for analysis. So I'll just come, the server name is asking for the server name. The server name is the Brown 001 / SQL Express. Once you type in your server name correctly, it's asking whether you want to use Windows Authentication or SQL Server. You can use SQL Server Authentication if you have set the SQL Server username and password, but I will use use the Windows Authentication for this. So once you have your server name correctly spelled, then you can come here to the database. You can type in your database manually, but you can also come to this drop down and it will load up the databases that you have access to. So just a moment. It should try to establish a connection to my SQL Server and then just shows me some of the databases. So fail to connect to the server, timeout. So let me do something. Let me just try to launch this again. Okay, so I think it's up here. So let me connect. Yeah, connected SQL Express, that is the name. Okay. I got an issue. So now I'll cancel this. So instead of this kind of slash is the opposite. So it's meant not to be this. I think this is the backward. So I'm meant to use this. This is what I'm meant to use. So then I'll come here. So immediately once my server name is correct, you can see I have the databases that I have installed on this machine. So I'll select my AdventureWorks and then you can test connection to be sure that this works. So test connection succeeded, then I'll go to next. So now here is asking that, do I want to select from a list of tables or you want to write a query? So depending, if you have a particular table you want to go through directly or you just want to select, it's fine. And if you want to write a query, you can do that as well. So I'm going to select this, that I want to write a query. So once I select that I want to write a query, I can just go on to next. It opens the window and it's asking me to write my SQL query. So let me just write something simple. Select from, I know I have a sales schema and I have a sales order header table. I have a sales order header table. So let me just import all from this. And so I can now validate. So the SQL statement is valid, which means that I have this table available within the database that I've specified. So I can go on to finish. Once I click on finish, it's going to spool in that data set for me. I can go on to close this and it pours that into my Excel. So you see, we have this data set now, all of this coming from my SQL Server, and I can begin to now analyze this. So we have this data here. This data is not in Excel. This is sitting on Power Pivot. But if you now want to build a pivot table on top of this data set, what you need to do is just to come to pivot table. You see pivot table somewhere at the top here. I'll click on pivot table, and then I select pivot table, and that will return me into Microsoft Excel. It's asking where do I want to insert this. I want to do it on a new worksheet, or I want to do it on existing. Remember that we have a blank worksheet, so I can do it on existing, and I'll do OK. And then we have this dropped inside of Excel for us. And if you look at the pivot table fields now, we have a query, which is coming from our SQL Server database. And I can begin to now look at some reports. Maybe I want to look at my sales order. Let me look at the status on the rows. Okay, I think I have status as a numeric field. So now let me look at the salesperson ID. And I can look at that with the, what's it called? Maybe the tax amount. Maybe something like this will make sense for me. So this is a report that's built on top of what is coming from your SQL Server, and you are analyzing this straight up in Excel. So this is the second way to build something with your pivot tables. The first way we looked at was to connect to your Excel range or Excel table. And now we looked at you connecting to your external data source. And so let's go on to now talking about the data model itself. So I'm just going to close this for now. I'll close this. I don't want to save this, so that is gone. So I'm back to my this. So I would just delete this for now. So this is the pivot table that we built earlier. So we are back here. I'll come back to my Power Pivot. And remember, when we talk about data model, so one of what we're trying to do, like I mentioned earlier, is to create a relationship between our different tables. Look at this workbook that we have here. Here we have store, we have trade date, we have fiscal period, and some details here. What if we want to see a report of, if I come to the model, so we have a worksheet here called D model. We have the models here, but let me look at the dates, for instance. For our dates, what we have on the actual data is just the trade date, which is the lowest granularity every day. What we sold on this date at Abaji for this model, for the service plan, is this revenue. And on the 3rd of April, on the 4th of April, so this is just at the very, the lowest hierarchy, the lowest granularity. That is the date that we have here. If peradventure we want to see our reports based on some other levels of date, as you have here, maybe we want to see that based on the quarters. Want to see it based on the day category, for instance. Want to see if we are selling more on workday or public holidays, or want to see it by a weekly report, so to put. Weekly reports, this may not be direct with pivot table. It's possible, but may not be too direct. But if you have a date table that is like this, then this can allow us to now drill down into our data to get to some of this information. And again, we have this table is totally different from our data table. Our data table does not have some of the details we have on the dates table. Then how can we now make our data table talk to the dates table such that our dates table we can report by day category, and that would filter down our values of revenue. I want to see our report by weekday, and that would drill down into filter our revenue by weekday. That's what we're trying to do. So you have different data sources, you want to pull them together so that they can start talking to one another. That is essentially one of what you want to do with your Power Pivot. So like I went the other time, come back to Power Pivot, and then I'll come to manage. Immediately I click on manage, you can see it has seen 4 of the worksheets. I think we had 5. Okay, for some reasons, it did not see the last one, which is date. So that is fine. It's one of those things that we need to talk about. So these are the worksheet that it has seen. We have LOB, we have model, we call this fact sales, and like that. So now, how can we now bring in that our dates table and create a relationship between them? For the moment, we have different tabs here. We have the home, we have the design, and we have the advanced tab. On the home tab, the view that we are currently looking at is the data view. That's why we can see the entire data set poured into this. We have this we are on the data view. If I switch to the diagram view, we have the diagram view here, and the diagram view is also available on the design. On the design tab, you see manage relationship. That's sort of your diagram view from here. So if I go back to the home tab and I come here, I can click on diagram view. And once I do that, it just shows me straight up the relationship between my tables. It has identified that I have different tables. I have this table here. Then I have this one, and this fact sales, I'm not sure this is the exact table I have here. I think probably because I have one other Excel file open. So this meant to be data, not fact sales. So we'll work about that now. So this fact sales, this is not meant to be my table actually. So I can do a right click and I say delete. So I want to delete this from the model. Delete from model, and that should be gone. So if I come to my data view, I won't see that on my data view again. So now I can see model, can see LOB, and I can see region. So if I come back to my diagram view, this is all the tables I have. So my tables, dimension tables, I like to put them at the top, while my facts table will stay just below. So how can I now bring in my 2 other tables, data and dates? I want them to be brought into my data model so that I can create a relationship between them and we'll be able to see how they can talk to one another. So what I can do is I can come to existing relationship. Okay, so I can come to from from data source, can come here to my Excel file. So what Excel file am I bringing in? I can browse to the file. I think the file path should be, let me confirm where the file path is. Just a moment. Just a moment, not sure I saved this. Okay, I just opened from the email. So I'm just gonna put this on my, let me put it on my desktop. On my desktop annual sales. I've saved it on my desktop. So I'll point to my desktop now. This is my desktop, annual sales, open, and then I'll say next. I can tell it use first row as headers. So I'll just check this box. I'll do next. And then what tables am I bringing in? It has seen all my tables. DLOB, D model, I have that already. I have D region. Then this is my data and this is my dates. So these are the 2 tables that I'm bringing in. So I'll click on finish and those should now be poured on my data model. So I have this is my data now, and this is the date. So I just brought in these 2. So I'm gonna pull this here, pull this here, pull this here. So at the moment, these 2 tables, they are not talking to one another. They are just separate, which means that if I try to build a report on this, let's see that quickly. Let's say that quickly. If I insert a pivot table, remember how we did, just come to pivot and pivot table. So I'm doing this on a new worksheet. I'll do okay. Now I have all the tables here. I have D model, D region, data, dates, and LOB. So this sales data is the table, the name I gave to the table, not really an extra query. So I can come here to the model. So let's say I'm dragging the model and dropping on the rows. And then I want to go to my data and I'm picking my revenue and putting it here. You see that enable content. For all of my models, I have the same revenue reported for them. Just the same revenue all across. Why is this happening? Because as at now, these models, they cannot be filtered. They cannot filter this revenue figure. So it's difficult for this model that we have on the D model to talk to the revenue that we have on the dates. So how do we make them talk to one another? That is what we'll do on our model. So we need to connect them so that they can now begin to talk to each other. And how do we connect them? It's just a matter of identifying what column is common. What column do we have on a table, which we have on our main table as well, which is our transactional file. So on the D model, we have the model, and also here we have the model. So I'm gonna bring this and I'll drag and drop it on the model here. And as soon as I do that, you see that we have a relationship between them. There's a line connecting them. The same way I'll go to my region. I think it's the store that we have here and on the data. So I'll pick my store and I'll drag and drop it on this. And I'll go to my date. So the date, pick that and drop it on my trade date. And I'll come to my line of business. I'll pick that and drop it on my line of business. So, but now it's telling me that my line of business contains some blanks and that is not allowed for a column. So let me go back to my Excel and come to my DLOB. So, okay, you can see no blanks here actually, but let me do something, which is usually a trick that works. So I've done this. Let me come back to this. I'll drop this on my LOB, and it's still saying that we have on the one side of a many-to-one relationship. Okay. So let me look at it from here, LOB. Okay, you can see one extra row here. So let me refresh this. Let me refresh this. Okay, this is what we have now. And I'll close this. Yeah, let me go to the diagram view. Hopefully this works now. It's still not working. So let me come back here. So these extra rows are the problem, which are actually, they are not meant to be there. Just do this. So I have this, and then let me go back to my data model. Let me refresh this again. So this is refreshed. So fully it's not seeing any extra row now. I'll come here and I'll do this. So now it's fine. So sometimes you just need a little tweak there to get this to work the way you want. So now that we have all our relationships established, LOB is connected to our data, the model is connected to data, region is connected to data, our date is connected to our main data. Then it means that we can now use any of the ones above to filter through the values that we have here. So for the moment, if I go back to my Excel on my pivot table, this is where it is on sheet 3, you can see that immediately all these numbers have changed. It's now reporting the actual numbers from all of these models. So we have the models and we have the actual figures here. And if you look at our fields here, see that the tables that are connected, we don't have any line in between them anymore. It means they cannot talk to one another. Great. So now, one of what we could do, these are the basic level. You are building a pivot table and your pivot is doing a sum for you. There are actually ways you can alter what you see. So by default, if you look at my values field, you see that what it did was a sum of revenue. How can we change this? Maybe what we want to see is the average revenue that we get from each of these line of business. So what you can do is you can come down to this values field here under the sum of revenue, click on the drop down, and you go to the value field settings, go to the value field settings, and I'll come here, and then you can see that as of now it's doing a sum. So we can change this to average, and you can click on OK. So click on OK. That's changed the calculation to average, and our sum is gone. But what if you want to see the sum and you want to see the average? So I'll do a Ctrl Z, which means we need this sum, but we want an extra column that would add the average revenue from each of these models. So I'll click back into my pivot tables, and I will go to my data. Remember that we dragged and dropped the revenue into the values field. That's why we have the sum of revenue. So I'll pick my revenue field again, and I'll drop it the second time. Once I do that, it adds an extra column for revenue, still doing the sum. So, but here now, I want to see the average. So I'll come to this drop down. I'll come to value field settings. I'll change this to average, and I'll do OK. And then we have altered this calculation to average. This is average of revenue from each of this line of business, and this is the average of units. This is the sum of revenue from each of these line of business. We can continue to add for whatever calculations we want to see on our pivot tables. So maybe you want to still say for our revenue, but instead of average and the sum, maybe you want to see what the minimum revenue from each of the line of business is. So we do OK, and that gives us what the minimum is at the click of a button. So this is one of the exceptional power of pivot tables. So our pivot tables still not looking so nice for now. Everything is still just like, just the traditional way. We might want to format this a bit. I want to make things just look a bit nicer, or a bit, visually appealing. So these figures, let's begin with that. Let's format these figures. So how do we do that? We have a number of options. So, but the option that I typically would advise we follow is still go back to the value field settings, because if we do that on the value field settings, it would be retained in our pivot table. So whenever we refresh, we have that still, the format will still be there. But if we format it manually, when we refresh, the format goes off, and then we need to reformat. And remember, the value of business intelligence is that you want to be able to refresh and you get everything real time. So that's the value of BI. So once you open your field settings, you have this option down here, number format. So click on that. This is the traditional format cell option that you get. So I want to go to number format. I want to do, let's use comma separator. And then I don't want a decimal place. That may be all. You may want to add a currency. Maybe you want to add that depending. So that's all. I'll do OK. And then I'll do OK again. But remember, as soon as we did OK, I was clicked in here or from the revenue. So I may have to do the same for these guys. So, or I can just do a right click. I'll come and do value fit settings. I'll do number format. I'll do this, remove these guys, and I'll do OK twice, and this is fine. And for this also, you can do the same thing. Another thing we might want to do here is this. You have our line of business here. Sorry, just our models. So we may want to see these models broken down by line of business. So I can come here and come here to, or we want to see this by our regions. So I'll drag my regions and drop it on the rows. So this immediately splits our values by the regions. So you're looking at this model and the regions where we saw it in. This may not make so much sense. So maybe I'll just pick my region and drop it above the model. Before you drop it, you see a green line which tell you where that will fall. I want to drop it above the model, which will now split, make the region the upper category. So we have our North Central, and we have all the sales that's coming from North Central. We have the Northeast and our sales figure that's coming from the Northeast, and like that. This is excellent. We have sliced and diced into our report with just a click of button. But we may want to make this look a bit better. So the default look or the default formatting for our table is what is called a compact view. And that's what we can see, which means that for everything that we add on our rows, they would be on the same column. So we may want to split this so that things are a bit nicer. So I'll come to my pivot table design, and then where we have report layout, I'll come to report layout, and I can say it should show in outline. Okay, this is the compact view. I can say it should show in outline, and I will split it into different columns. So now we have our regions on a column, and we have the model on another column. And this is nice. We can actually come here, do a right click and tell it to collapse. Where is that collapse button? Expand or collapse. I want to collapse entire fields. And this gives us the aggregated figure at the region level. You want to drill through, just expand one of the regions. You see the details. You're done. You can collapse this back. So this is nice, but this may not be all we want to see. It may not still work totally for us. So I can just do expand all fields. So we still want to see this a bit differently. So we have other options. Report layout can come here to show in tabular form. So showing in tabular form, this makes it look more like the table. And for each of these region, we may want to say the subtotals. So we want to know how much are we getting from North Central, from North Central at that level. So what we can do is, still under the design tab, can come to the subtotals, and we say, we can say show subtotals at the bottom of group. If that's where I want to see it, I'll click on that. And immediately we have a subtotal for North Central, we have a subtotal for Northeast, and like that. So it is just so flexible. You are just clicking, and you are getting your result. Let's quickly look at one more pivot table before we call this a wrap. We have just about 30 minutes left, so I'm just gonna I want to collapse. It takes me some time to see some of this. I just collapse entire field. So if you want to insert another pivot table, a couple of ways. You might want to go back to your data, do insert, but the faster way is you can just come here, copy this, and then come here, paste. And that gives you another pivot table. Then you can now decide what do you want to see. So by just dragging out the fields from the buckets, you just throw them off. So you can decide what you want to see. Yeah, I don't want to see all of this. My sum of revenue is what I want to see here, but I want to see this by, let's say, by the date. So I'll pick my date and I'll drop it on the rows. So I have my dates here, and my data has been summarized at the year level. Why was my date summarized? It's actually because of the fact that, one, from the settings of my Excel, I've asked it to always auto group my dates. And again, because of the version of Excel, this may not be applicable to all versions of Excel. So if it happens that when you drop your dates, you have something like this. You have something like this. This is your full date. Everything, the entire dates that you have in your data set. This may be what you would have. So if you have something like this and you want to report by month, so then what you can do is just stay anywhere under your date column, do a right click, and you can see, you see a group, you see command here, group, click on group. And for group, it's asking you, how do you want to group your dates? So you want to group by month, and then you click on OK. So, and now you see that immediately we have our dates grouped at the month level. But within the month, we still have the days there. The days are still there within the month. So if you don't want the days to be there, you can just come under the rows. You see that we have two dates now. We have one date tagged month, and we have another date that's just date. The other one that's just date is that is your actual date, your granular date. So if I pick that and I throw it off, that is gone. So we now have our report at the month level. So this is the revenue for January. This is what we got in December. If you want to add other fields levels or other date levels, you can do a right click again, come to group, and now beyond seeing the month, you want to add the years. So I'll click on years and I'll do OK. So if you have more than a year in this report, we have our reports broken down by year. You can see we have 2014 and we have 2015. But for this one, maybe I'm not interested in seeing the subtotal. So you can come to the design, come to the subtotal, you see do not show subtotal, and that is off. And if you want to bring it back, it's the same way and like that. So now we have our 2014, that's the year, and this is the month, and this is the revenue. Let's say we want to do some quick variances. We want to see the values, the revenue for each month relative to the last month. So for instance, now I want to compare January's revenue to February's revenue to January to say, did we grow? Did our revenue increase or decreased? Going from February to March, did our revenue increase or decrease, and by how much? If you want to see a calculation like this, what we can do is to come back to our data, and then I'll pick our revenue, I'll drop it again on the field. So we have a second column for our revenue. Then I'll stay anywhere on that second column, which I want to use for that calculation. I'll do a right click, and I'll come to show values as. So there are different calculations you can make. You can do percentage of grand total, percentage of column. All of these are things you can explore, but I'll do percentage differences from. We want to compare a month to the other, January to February, February to March, March to April. That's the kind of comparison we want to do. So I'll click on percentage difference from, and now it's asking me that what is the base field for this calculation? The base field is my month. That's the field I want to use for this calculation. If you want to do it at the year level, you select your year as the base field. And then what's the base item? What are we comparing against? If I select this, if I leave it as March, it will compare all my revenue figures to March. Let's see that. I'll do OK. And now you see that for March, we do not have anything because we are comparing March to March, which means that as at this time, the percentage difference will be 0. And again, see March 2015, it's still blank as well. So I'll go back to my calculation. I'll do a right click. I'll come to show values as, percentage difference from, and instead of doing to March, I'll click on the drop down and I say previous. So which means that for whatever month you are on, compare the revenue figure for that month to the previous month and tell me what the variance is, what the difference is. So I'll click on OK, and my calculation changes. And now I'm at this point where January is blank because January is comparing to the previous, which we do not have a previous for. There is no data for 2013. It should have compared that to within the same year, it should have compared that to the previous month if we had a month preceding January. So going from January to February, we have an increase in revenue of 4.3%. And going from February to March, our revenue increased also by 1.64% and went on like that. So we have a calculation like this that we can quickly do. And for our columns, I'm just trying to wrap up now. For our columns, you can rename our columns. So if I call these, I can call this year, and then for this one, I can call this, if I call this date, I'll get, okay, let me see what I have here. Okay, yeah, so if I call this dates, okay, still took that. So if it were to be in traditional Excel, if you try to rename it with the same name that your column bears, you will get an error. So just know that a quick fix to that will be that you just add a space or something to make it different from. But because this is feeding from the pivot table, which is not from the power pivot, from the Excel data model. That's why this is not throwing some errors. So this one I can say, instead of sum of revenue, I can say revenue. And then for this one, I can say percentage difference in revenue. So the same way you can expand your columns, you can do a lot of formatting, and we have some pivot table design. You can come here, select whatever design you want, if this suits you. Maybe you want something like this, or maybe something like this, depending. And once you select whatever style you want to use, there are a lot of formatting you can do here. You can switch off row headers. You can add banded columns, or you had banded rows. So it gives just some lines there. A lot of formatting, and if you can also actually create your own style as well. So if you want to create your own style, you can do a right click on any style. You say duplicate. So this will ask you to give your style a name. You can say this is my style. Let me zoom into this. You can say this is my style. And then I can say that, so how do I want to design my own style? I can come to something like second stripe. Maybe I want to increase the number of stripes, maybe to 2. And then I can give it a different color, can do a few, maybe something like this, depending. This might be crazy, maybe not something nice. You've edited this, can do okay. And then I can come back to somewhere. If I click on the drop down, you see custom, and let me say we should see our the new style that we created somewhere here. So that wasn't that's not here yet. So I can do my style and just alter some things here. So let me make this something like this. Can do this. It's just you playing with something. So if you have, if in the organization you have a particular style that you use, then you can actually, the style name already exists. Okay, so which means that style was actually there. So I have this. So this is the style. This is what I just created here. So again, those are some of the things you see. This is the style, my style 2. This is my style 1 here, my style. So these are some of the things that we can just quickly do with nothing too technical within Excel pivot table, having to build some reports. And this is looking really scary. So maybe I just change it back to this. So with a click of certain button, someone is asking for a quick report on something, you can actually do plug in your pivot table on it, and immediately you have a report at your fingertips, and you can go on to now build some visualization, make things a lot nicer, and do some more complex calculations, which will be some of the things we'll be looking at in the session tomorrow. So at this time, let me hold on a bit if we have some questions, so we can quickly attend to those. Hello, Samson.
Hello, thank you, Muhsin, for the wonderful session. So I don't know if any of us have questions that would like mostly to, share more light on that. So yeah. So any question, please? I see a number of us has been going in and out, maybe probably due to the network challenge, but I don't know from what you got during the session. Do you have any area of concern that you would need clarity on? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, I
Yes,
hear.
yes, I can hear you, Samson.
Oh, great. Okay.
Basically, I don't have any question right now. So I just only wanted to ask you about the power pivot. Basically, I'm just searching the same option here to just add on my Excel, but I didn't basically to find here in the customized quick access toolbar. So I don't know why this basically not here.
Okay,
So can
Muzammil,
you please?
what version of Excel are you using?
I think 1 minute. I just check, and I think 2016 or something about.
2016?
Yeah. Where I can check the Excel exact version. Uh, right now I opened my Excel. So can you tell me that where should I see the Excel version basically?
Okay, could you share your screen?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. This is basically, you see my screen right now?
Yes, I can see. Okay, go to File,
Okay.
then you go to Account.
Can't.
So you're using 2016. Can you see
Yes.
Microsoft Office Professional plus 2016?
Yes.
Okay,
16.
so then, yeah. So you said you downloaded the
No,
Power Pivot.
basically, no, I don't know downloaded the Power Pivot. I just when you during the session you had just told about this section. So I'm just looking here at the Power Pivot. Should we have to download it?
So for 2016, I think you don't need to download actually. So if you look at the, what's it called? Look at the other section where you have customize, okay, popular commands, customize ribbon. See customize ribbon.
Okay.
On the left part, those menu on the left part, customize ribbon.
Yeah, this is the customer ribbon.
Yes, so look at the right parts, the right box,
This
customize ribbon. Yeah,
Yeah.
so under where you
Yeah.
have main tabs, you don't have power pivots there.
Yes,
Okay,
I
you
don't
don't have
have it
it
here.
there. Click on the drop down above where you have main tabs at the top. Click on all tabs,
Okay.
then scroll down. Let's say if you would have it. Okay, you don't have it here. It means you need to download the add-in.
Okay.
Hello?
And
Okay.
then
So
something.
Yes, please. Under the customized ribbon, sorry, can you go back? Let's
yes,
just check something. So you see add-in. Do you see add-in at the left? Left.
Yeah.
Click on add-in.
Yeah.
So you see manage below. Click on the drop down. The drop down. So you see comes add-in.
Yes.
So click on go. Then
Oh, yes.
okay,
Here
so
it is.
you now have it. Okay, yeah. So that is the other way
Okay.
around
Okay.
as well.
Do we
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do we
So-
need this Microsoft Power View for Excel as well? Should I have to install this?
No, Power Pivot is what you need essentially. So the Power View
Okay.
has been discontinued practically.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
Now,
Samson. So you have Power Pivot on the tabs now. Great.
yes. Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
So
Yeah, are you're good now, Muzammil?
yes, I am going to just stop my screen. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other question?
Any other question for Muhsin before we end the session?
I think everybody is sleeping at home.
No,
it's
I don't have any
pretty late already.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Samson and Mohsen. That was a really informative session. Initially I thought I would have questions by the end of the class, but surprisingly, I don't. It was really well explained by Muhsin, and thank you for that, Muhsin.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining on us.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So probably I guess no one have any further question for Muhsin, and as such, we've come to the end of today's session. So let's just try to join early enough tomorrow for the session tomorrow. We'll be looking at a number of things, which include writing of tax, that is the explicit measure, in order for us to draw more insight from our data. So yeah, basically that is what we'll be looking at tomorrow, alongside other things that will help us to gain more insights.
Samson, could you please?
Hello, please.
Yes, Samson. Could you please tell me that when you basically shared with us the recording link, so we can be just rewatch this video and just to do some practice, which basically Mohsin has to like perform the task.
Yeah, that would
Okay.
be really helpful also for retention purposes to be able to
Oh,
watch the video.
okay, okay. So I'll be sharing it though late today. I'll be sharing it today. Let's say at max 3 hours after the session has ended, you will get it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
I think someone.
Hello. Yeah, Daniel, your hand is raised.
Yeah, yes, I was trying to ask an assignment for us so that we can perfect what we have learned today. Some
Okay.
work you would want to at least to, so that by tomorrow when we have the session again, I'm just trying to think.
Okay, on that, something, should I go on?
Yeah, go on, please.
Okay, so thank you for raising that, Daniel. So what we can do is when Samson is sending the link to the recording, we'll have a few tasks for us to perform. That's based off what we have done today. And hopefully maybe we'll have a time put to it for submission tomorrow. So we can review before the session tomorrow,
Oh,
if that
that's
works.
great. Oh, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Muhsin, and thank you, Daniel, for that question. So I don't know if any other person has something to say before we close this session.
Yeah, I don't have any question basically. So I'm just only wanted to say you that you have to basically like to publish your meeting links for next day on LinkedIn. So will share your link so that would be more people participate in this conversation, and so a lot of question will becomes then multiple people's joining us. So right now we have very limited people. So maybe that's why the question is low.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. I'll definitely do that after we've ended the session.
Okay, I think, can we leave?
Yes, please. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Muhsin. Thank you, everyone. See you same time tomorrow. From here.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
Thank
bye,
you. Thank
Bye,
you,
bye, bye.
everybody.
bye.
Bye. Be great evening.
Oh.